The sequels could have been the greatest finale Star Wars ever had. They had the cast, the budget, the hype, and the perfect chance to bring the Skywalker saga home. But instead they gave us mystery boxes with no answers, arcs that contradicted each other, and more retcons than a comic book crossover event. It is like they had all the ingredients for a gourmet meal and still managed to burn the kitchen down. Finn was supposed to be the breakout star, a stormtrooper who breaks free from the First Order and finds his own identity. That is a story we have never seen before, and it could have been revolutionary. Instead, the sequels turned him into background noise, sidelining him so badly that by the third movie his biggest contribution was shouting Rey's name across battlefields like he was calling for her at a crowded mall. That is not an arc, that is wasted potential. And then there is Luke Skywalker, the man who resisted Vader, defied the Emperor, and saved the galaxy through compassion, suddenly becomes a bitter hermit who tosses his lightsaber away like he is flicking garbage into a dumpster. Fans waited decades for Luke's return, and what did we get? Grumpy uncle energy mixed with a crash course in how to alienate your audience. The legend was dismantled in real time, and it hurt more than anything the Sith could do. Rey deserved better too. She started as a compelling mystery, a scavenger with hidden strength and limitless possibilities. But instead of developing her identity, the sequels turned her into a revolving door of family reveals. Nobody in one film, Palpatine's granddaughter in the next, and by the end she is just deciding to call herself Skywalker, like it is a rebranding exercise. She is less a character and more a marketing strategy wrapped in lightsabers. And let us not forget the trilogy itself. 3 movies, 3 directors, 3 completely different visions. It is like watching 3 people try to finish the same jigsaw puzzle while constantly throwing out each other's pieces. One film says the past does not matter, the next says the past matters more than anything, and the last tries to paste everything back together with nostalgia glue. The result is a mess that never feels like one story. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what I would change to actually make the sequels work. From giving Finn the arc he deserved, to fixing Luke's legacy, to giving Rey an identity beyond constant retcons, and most importantly, creating a trilogy with one clear vision. Because if Star Wars taught us anything, it is that hope is not lost, even for a trilogy that nearly ruined itself. The Star Wars sequels are one of those cinematic mysteries. They had the cast, the budget, the nostalgia, and the perfect chance to wrap up the Skywalker saga. Yet somehow they stumbled over their own feet. And it makes you wonder, what if just a few key choices had been made differently? Could we have had a trilogy worthy of the name Star Wars? The first curious change has to be Finn. Imagine if his arc as a runaway stormtrooper had been the central spine of the sequels. His struggle with identity, his confrontation with the First Order that created him, and his journey toward becoming a Jedi would have been groundbreaking. We have never seen a stormtrooper break free and rise as a hero before. That story alone could have redefined the saga. And then there is Luke Skywalker, the hero of the original trilogy. Curiosity pushes us to ask, why not show him as a consistent mentor who still carried his flaws but remained true to his core? Why twist him into a bitter hermit when his legacy demanded something greater? That change alone could have altered the entire tone of the sequels. Rey's role sparks curiosity too. Instead of being defined by mystery boxes and parentage retcons, what if she had been given a meaningful identity tied to the Skywalker saga? Not a secret Palpatine, but someone who symbolized the future of the Jedi without relying on contrived bloodlines. That version of Rey could have felt authentic, inspiring, and deeply connected to the story's heart. The curiosity of these what-ifs is powerful, because it proves the sequels had the raw ingredients to succeed. They just needed focus, consistency, and vision to actually make it work. And this is where the frustration boils over. Because instead of telling those stories, the sequels gave us contradictions, wasted arcs, and fan service slapped together like duct tape on a starship hull. It is infuriating to watch because you can see the potential, right there on the screen, begging to be realised. Finn is the biggest source of frustration. He starts out as the first stormtrooper to defect, a premise filled with drama and emotional weight. Yet by The Last Jedi, he is relegated to a casino, subplot that teaches him war is bad. And by The Rise of Skywalker, he spends most of his time shouting Rey's name from across battlefields. That is not character growth. That is narrative neglect. And Luke. Oh, Luke. The man who faced Darth Vader, resisted the Emperor, and restored hope to the galaxy, suddenly decides to abandon everything after one bad vision. His arc in The Last Jedi is less character evolution and more character assassination. It feels like the writers wanted shock value instead of storytelling. And it is frustrating because it did not have to be that way. And behind all that frustration lies sorrow. Because the sequels could have been so much more. They could have honoured the old heroes while building new ones, but instead they squandered opportunity after opportunity. And the result is a trilogy that leaves fans grieving what might have been. Finn's wasted arc is deeply sorrowful. John Boyega poured energy, charisma, and humanity into a character who should have been one of the greatest heroes in Star Wars history. But instead he was sidelined, diminished, and left unfinished. That loss is not just for the story, it is for the audience who deserved to see his journey fulfilled. Luke's portrayal brings even greater sorrow. Fans waited decades to see their hero again, only to watch him become a bitter recluse who tossed his lightsaber aside. The sorrow of that reveal is not just disappointment, it is heartbreak. Because the Luke we saw was not the Luke who inspired generations. His legacy was torn down instead of celebrated. Rey's story adds another layer of sorrow. Instead of being her own character with her own journey, she was dragged into a messy web of parentage reveals that stripped away her individuality. Her strength should have come from her choices, not her lineage. And by tying her to Palpatine, the sequels robbed her of the powerful message that anyone can rise, regardless of bloodline. The sorrow of the sequels is that they had every chance to soar, but instead they clipped their own wings. And the Skywalker saga ended not with triumph, but with regret. But let us not forget, there was awe buried in the sequels too. Because even in their flawed execution, there were moments that took our breath away. And those flashes remind us of what the trilogy could have been if the story had matched the spectacle. The lightsaber duel in The Force Awakens between Kylo Ren and Rey was filled with awe. The snowy forest, the crackling red and blue sabers, the raw energy of combat. It was the perfect stage to launch a new era of Star Wars. And it showed us the awe that was possible. The throne room fight in The Last Jedi is another example. Whatever you think of the movie, that scene with Rey and Kylo battling Praetorian guards is pure cinematic electricity. The choreography, the intensity, the symbolism of enemies forced to unite. It is one of the most awe-inspiring fights in the saga. Even the visual worlds inspire awe. Jakku's starship graveyards, Crate's white salt plains stained red in battle. Exegel's thunderous skies hiding a fleet of Sith ships. Say what you will about the story, but the spectacle never failed to dazzle. The sequels knew how to look epic, even when they struggled to feel epic. The awe of the sequels is bittersweet, because it proves that Star Wars still had the power to inspire wonder. It just needed the storytelling to match the spectacle, and that is where the trilogy fell short. Finn's story still carries hope. In comics and expanded media, his character can be rebuilt, his potential explored, and his arc redeemed. Fans still want to see him become the hero he was meant to be, and that desire is powerful. It means the character is not lost, just waiting to be done justice. Luke's legacy also holds hope, because his story does not end with The Last Jedi. The lessons he passes on, flawed as they are, still inspire Rey and future generations. And Star Wars can always revisit Luke in ways that restore his legendary status without erasing his struggles. Rey too carries hope, because despite the messy execution, she represents the next chapter of the Jedi. If future stories focus on her choices, her growth, and her leadership, Rey can still become a character worthy of the saga's legacy. Hope exists in what comes next, not just in what came before. The hope of the sequels lies in their failure, because by showing us what does not work, they light the path for what could work in the future. And that is a hopeful lesson for Star Wars moving forward, But the resolution of the sequels is ultimately a tragedy. Because the Skywalker saga deserved a grand finale, and instead it was handed contradictions, rushed reveals, and a fractured vision. The tragedy is not just what we got, but what we lost. A chance to see the saga close in harmony rather than chaos. The tragedy lies in wasted potential. Finn could have been a Jedi. Luke could have been a mentor. Rey could have been her own character instead of a legacy retcon. Instead, we got fragments of each stitched together into something that satisfied no one completely. The resolution is that the sequels are a cautionary tale. They prove that even the biggest franchise in the world cannot survive without a clear plan. Storytelling demands patience, consistency, and vision. And when those are missing, the result is inevitable: collapse. But perhaps the true resolution is that Star Wars is bigger than its failures. The saga will endure, new stories will be told, and the lessons of the sequels will shape what comes next. The tragedy hurts, but the story goes on. So yes, the sequels stumbled, but imagining what could have been reminds us of why we care. Because deep down, we know Star Wars deserves better. And maybe someday, it will finally get the ending it was always meant to have.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.